Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is shaking up his front bench. Some of his MPs are taking on new portfolios, including some who are newly elected. But the party's senior leadership, everyone there is staying put. We're going to talk about it with the Power Panel in a minute. But first, the CBC's Kate McKenna joins us with more. A lot of names on that list. Kate, what stood out to you from this shuffle?
Well, Catherine, the Conservatives are saying that this is all about affordability, but what stood out to me is that the shadow cabinet does not seem to be immune from inflation. We're talking about 83 new jobs or jobs that have been shuffled in this critic shuffle. It went from 73 to 83 overnight, but of course there's no compensation that comes from getting these jobs. So, you know, these jobs are widespread among a caucus of 140. And probably the one that has stood out the most is the new finance critic, which is Michael Chong. You know, this is a longtime MP, an MP who has been serving for more than 20 years at this point, somebody who internally is thought to have a lot of integrity, to be very thoughtful, and he is leaving his longtime post of foreign affairs. So I spoke with him earlier today about what his priorities are. Take a listen.
Well, the priority will simply be affordability, affordability, affordability. And to prosecute the government on its failures to introduce the fundamental reforms we need to our economy to get things turned around.
This is also a shuffle that's putting some newer MPs in the spotlight. I noticed Newfoundland and Labrador MP Carol Ansey is taking on natural resources. BC MP Aaron Gunn is taking on ethics from Michael Barrett, who is going to Veterans Affairs. Ontario MP Sandra Cabina, Treasury Board critic. Ellis Ross in BC, he's taking on environment, perhaps drawing on some of his experience provincially there, as well as a First Nations leader in where he's from, as well as McKenna is taking on justice. So these are all sort of new faces or newer faces that are being elevated in this caucus.
In terms of the critic portfolios, but when we look at the leadership team, those names seem to be basically staying the same. What do we make of that?
Yeah, exactly. Both deputy leaders are staying put. That's Melissa Lanceman and Tim Uppel. Andrew Scheer staying on as House Leader, Chris Warkentin staying on as the whip. And this is sort of the thing I've been hearing the most just in Conservative circles today. Not necessarily surprised there, but just wondering, okay, well, are we tinkering around the edges? What's actually the plan here? What is the goal here? How much of a reset is this actually? But, you know, also some of the more high-profile names in this caucus, I can think of Michelle Rempel-Garner at Immigration, Scott Aitchison at Housing. They were already some of the most front and center Conservative MPs we've been hearing from. They're staying in their positions. So whether or not this leads to actual change in what we see from the Conservatives remains to be seen. But we know that Pierre Poilievre has been criticized for not showcasing more of his bench, and maybe this is the opportunity to do it.
Okay, thank you for bringing us up to speed. CBC's Kate McKenna. Kate asks, how much of a change is this really? Let us ask the Power Panel. Carleen Verheyen, Lisa Raitt, and Emily Nicolas. Lisa, I am going to start with you as the Conservative on this panel. How much of a change is this really?
Big change, and I'll tell you why. I actually went to question period on the 17th, a couple Wednesdays ago, and I watched. And if I could say that one thing I observed was we weren't as nimble on our feet, meaning Conservatives, as we should have been. The questions weren't responsive to what the answers were. And the Liberals, quite frankly, were really good in question period that day. They should have a lot to be grateful for because they handled themselves really well. What I see in these choices is they've put in the hands of the surest MPs the most important portfolios in terms of repartee on the floor of the House of Commons. Michael Chong, fantastic. He's going to listen to what the answer is and be able to come back right away. Adam Chambers, same thing. He's going to be able to listen to the question and the answer and come back right away with something pointed. And I think the biggest one is Shub coming on and doing
Canada,
coming
US,
into.
Yep.
Canada, US. Thank you for that. Coming into Canada, US. I mean, we've seen him on his feet. He's absolutely fantastic. You are now, I think, seeing a leader who is wanting to put on display what a government is going to look like. And I think it's a smart move.
Carleen, I wonder what you make of this smart move, as Lisa says.
I mean, I'm the Liberal on the panel, but I also spent 9 of my 15 years on Parliament Hill in opposition, and I don't envy the position that Mr. Poilievre is in. They are staring down 3 more years of a majority government rumors continuing to swirl about potential additional floor crossers being lured to the government side, and sort of a general dissatisfaction with the current leader of the party's ability to compete head-to-head with the PM. That's partly of his own doing and partly due to broad externalities. But I think they made the right call. This was a refresh of the front bench that largely accomplished what it needed to, which I think was two things. Off-ramp some of your lower performers and elevate some of the newer folks who've been doing well. I think Sandra Cabina going to Treasury Board is an example of that. And then I also think it's, titles are free. They're great for morale. And if you are worried about closing ranks and keeping everybody in your caucus, it's a way to ensure that people feel valued. An example that I noticed in that list was somebody like Eric Duncan, who's been a member of caucus since 2019, but I think has only ever been a backbencher. From a Liberal-ish riding in Eastern Ontario, and somebody who tends to lean a little bit more progressive, suddenly wakes up today and he's the foreign affairs critic. So, I think there's some wise tactical moves there. They're doing what they need to do, and I think that the new critics will have the summer to brush up on their new files and hopefully come on your show and talk about them in the fall.
We would appreciate that. We're always happy to have all the parties on. Emily, I wonder, is there a message here, or is this primarily about managing internal dynamics?
I think it's about, first of all, trying to do better when the House of Commons comes back in the fall. And so it's not about the announcement itself, because there's a lot of us and lovely viewers who are paying attention the day before Canada Day, but it's not the greatest day in the world to make a big announcement, politically speaking. And so I think it's more about the doing than the announcing it. And because of that, I also think that there is, if you wanted to make noise, you would have waited till later in August or September. So the reason they're probably doing it now, although it's not garnishing as much attention, as much attention, is because it's making people happy before going off for the summer. When MPs are not happy, there's a lot of phone calls that tend to happen, or coffees that are being taken, or just people. Things can develop over a summer while we're not paying attention. It certainly happened in the past in the Liberal bench when people were not happy with Justin Trudeau. So I think making people pride of their new business cards before their vacation, in that sense, is also making sure that you're not coming back in Ottawa in September with a situation that has gotten worse because people have got riled up, essentially, is what this is accomplishing as well.
Lisa, what's the most important thing, the number one thing you'd like to see Pierre Poilievre do this summer?
I would like to see him talking to Canadians and be seen talking to Canadians. And I think affordability is the right way to go. I also think what you said before makes sense, that he puts some of his folks out there in the interview spots as well, just to broaden it out a little bit and just see how it all goes. This is a very important summer for him. I'm going to put a little bit of pressure, I think, on the leader on this one. The reason being is that he still hasn't been able to overcome a lot of the whispers that come from different parts of media, that come from different parties as well, as to whether or not he's going to be the person that's going to lead the Conservatives into the next party. This is the summer where he needs to put that to rest. He's got to kill that rumor, and he's got to move on in the fall, the leader of a strong, united Conservative Party. And that's going to be a task, and we'll see how difficult that's going to be. And we will actually be able to judge it when we get back to the House in September.
Carleen, do you think the Liberals, would they like Pierre Poilievre to stick around?
I hope he sticks around as long as he can. In all seriousness, I do think it's important to underscore that Pierre Poilievre is in a position that he can control to a certain extent, but beyond that, there are externalities that are going to prevent him from moving past a certain ceiling. We have in Mark Carney essentially almost a wartime prime minister. The country has really rallied behind him in a way that pushes past traditional partisan lines in a way that we don't typically see. Conversations are primarily global conversations about major geopolitical issues, trade issues, a fight for our survival. In those conversations, the public generally has less of an interest in hearing somebody punch down on everything that their government is doing. They want their politicians to work collaboratively. So they're less interested in the back and forth of question period and more interested in what's actually happening to ensure that they and their families can, pay for groceries, get by, all of that. And so that's going to be his challenge. I think Lisa's absolutely right that finding a space where he can actually put out constructive ideas and challenge the government is what he needs to do. Affordability is probably that space.
Emily, one thing I know the Conservatives are thinking about is asking Canadians, is your life really better than it was before the Liberals came along? Hoping that, given that it's been let's face it, a rough decade for citizens of the world, that people will say, well, no, it's not, and maybe it's time for something different. Do you think that's the most effective message Mr. Poilievre can be leaning in on right now?
No, because it's not about what the Liberals are doing. It's about what the Conservatives are proposing as an alternative, not just as pointing out the problems, but also looking like they could be in charge of the alternative and be in charge of the solution. And that's what has been the limit of Pierre Poilievre, looking not just like a great critic, but also as somebody who could be prime minister. And so I think that's the issue there. That it's a great strategy as long as Pierre Poilievre is there. It's their best bet, but that's been the hurdle. So in a way, I think that just like Pierre Poilievre has been missing Justin Trudeau ever since he's been gone as an adversary, he was built to have him as an adversary. Maybe if Pierre Poilievre was to eventually not be there, Mark Carney would also miss him in the sense that there is that contrast there in terms of personality that is very stark. I don't think Mark Carney wants Pierre Poilievre to go away, let's put it this way.